Thank you very much, Father Cassius, and I'm very happy to be here this morning to share some information with you. Last year, when coronavirus was declared a pandemic, it changed all of our lives. Countries were shut down, economies were shut down, and churches were shut down. We had millions of persons who died and who are suffering as a result of this virus. And we kept saying all along that it was only a vaccine that was going to get us out of this crisis. And we are happy with the help of God, through the knowledge that He gave to scientists. We have vaccines that are available now. And I'm here to share with you some information about the vaccines. I'm not going to be too long. I'm going to give you a brief overview and then give you 10 reasons why you should take the vaccine. We have the nurses in the back who are here for your convenience, who, after I'm speaking, you can roll up your sleeve and take the vaccine. Now, this is not the this is not the first time that the world has had to struggle with a pandemic. In 1760, smallpox was killing over 400,000 Europeans each year. However, there's a surgeon's apprentice whose name was Jenner, who noticed that persons who worked on the farm around cows, they were not getting sick and they were not dying as a result of smallpox. And he did an investigation and found out that these farm workers, they were previously infected with cowpox, which is a different pox virus that affected cows and that can affect human beings. But when humans became infected with cowpox, it caused very, very mild disease. However, the antibodies they developed against the cowpox protected them against smallpox, and that is why they were not dying. And to stem the tide of the smallpox, he infected persons with the cowpox, and that's how the pandemic ended. Then we move forward 100 years ago. The Spanish flu that started in 1918 infected over 500 million persons, or about 1/3 of the world's population at the time. Unlike today, where we have an effective vaccine, there was no vaccine available at that time. And by the time the virus had run its course in April 1920, it had killed more than 100 million persons. We are fortunate to have been born in this day and age where we have vaccines that are available to help us. And vaccines have been around for decades, and over 3 million lives are saved each year through vaccination. Despite the fact that we have effective and available vaccines, however, there's still some vaccine hesitancy, and some of it is understandable, and that is why we have these education sessions, so that we can inform you. Because without doing the right thing and getting vaccinated, and if persons before us didn't do the right thing and got vaccinated, imagine a world where we were fighting smallpox, measles, mumps, rubella, and COVID-19 at the same time. Most of us would not be here listening to me today. So our vaccine rollout started on the 22nd of February, and it was a major milestone in this federation's fight against COVID-19. And we saw persons leading by example on that first day. I got vaccinated on that first day. Dr. Ferdinand did. Over 95% of the doctors in the federation, they are currently vaccinated. The Prime Minister and all of the cabinet members, and a significant proportion of the opposition parties, they have been vaccinated. To date, we have vaccinated over 11,452 persons, and we need to give them a round of applause, because these are persons who stepped forward and did the right thing. And this marks 34.9% of the target population. We are hoping to get 33,037 persons vaccinated. Now, there are some persons who wonder, how are these vaccines developed? What brings them to market? Before a vaccine gets into your arm, it has to undergo rigorous testing, which are called trials. And it starts off first with testing in animals to determine the dose and the efficacy. And then it moves to human trials. And they go through 3 levels, phase 1, 2, and 3, before they have to be authorized. And once a vaccine is authorized, it is looked at by reputable institutions, including the World Health Organization, before it is deemed safe to be given to human beings. And we have decided here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis that we would not be using any vaccinations at this point in time that were not authorized by the World Health Organization. And the vaccine that we are rolling out is the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is the vaccine that is authorized by the World Health Organization and is being distributed throughout the entire world. Now, this vaccine helps to boost your immune system so that when you come in contact with the real disease, you have antibodies or proteins to eliminate the virus. Therefore, it protects you from getting seriously ill or dying. It actually prevents a significant number of persons also from even getting infected with the virus and preventing viral transmission. It is stored at 2 to 8 degrees, which is at the refrigerator temperature, which makes it convenient to be distributed to a number of persons worldwide, unlike the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, which has to be stored at ultra-cold temperatures, -30, -70. And an ultra-cold freezer costs about 100 to 200,000 US dollars. If we were to have Pfizer or Moderna, we would have to have these refrigerators in every single health center. And so you can see the exorbitant cost even before you get the vaccine into persons' arms. And that's why there are a number of countries around the world who are using AstraZeneca as opposed to the Pfizer or the Moderna. Now, some persons raised eyebrows when they heard that it was made by the Serum Institute in India. But the Serum Institute in India is the largest supplier of vaccines around the world. Each year, they produce 1.5 billion doses and distribute them worldwide. As a matter of fact, all of the vaccines that you would have received as a child came from the Serum Institute in India. This company is responsible for vaccinating more than 2/3 of the world's population. And even most of the medications that you take, if you read them carefully, you might see that they would have been made in India. And they distribute these vaccines to more than 170 countries around the world. And so it's a plus that we are getting this vaccine from the Serum Institute in India, which is the most largest and the most reputable company that makes vaccines. So you might ask then, why should I take this vaccine? And I'm going to give you a number of reasons, not necessarily in the priority order. But the first one is that it is free. Okay? In that it's 100% free. Now, somebody had to pay for it because there's nothing called a free meal, but it's being given to you free. And all you have to do is to show up at one of the health centers, roll up your sleeve, and take the vaccine. And so it is offered at the 11 health centers in St. Kitts and 6 in Nevis. And we even make it convenient by coming to churches, businesses, etc., that have a staff of more than 10 so that we can vaccinate them. Now, there are some persons, when I go to talk at town hall meetings, they say, is it going to stay free forever, or are we going to have to pay a cost for it later on? And you'll be surprised with the answer I give them, because when I tell them, yes, you're going to have to pay for it later on, they're shocked. And they say, how could the government do that? I say, no, it's not the government that's going to do that to you. It is the virus. Because once the country opens more, the virus is going to come. We cannot stop it. And there are persons who are going to get infected. And there are persons who are going to get seriously ill. And there are persons who are going to die from the virus. And so that is the cost you will have to pay if you don't do the right thing now. Now, some persons ask, is it effective? We know that the AstraZeneca vaccine, it is highly effective. Their efficacy in clinical trials is 82.4%. Now, some persons might look at the efficacy of the Pfizer, which is 95, and the Moderna, which is 94, and say, oh, I prefer that one that has a high efficacy. But those numbers are for clinical trials. But in the general population, the effectiveness can approach 100% the more persons get vaccinated. In other words, for example, if everybody in this church was vaccinated and one person came in here, a stranger came in here and started to cough and spread the virus will not move, because the effectiveness of us coming together as a church and getting vaccinated will make sure that that virus stays dead in its track. So you just can't look at the absolute numbers that are associated with the vaccine, but how effective the vaccine will be if all of us do the correct thing. Another reason why you need to take the vaccine is that it saves lives. Although we have had no deaths in St. Kitts so far, and I keep saying so far, across the Caribbean, more than 10,000 persons have died from this virus. In the United States, the great United States, more than 565,000 persons have died from it. And worldwide, this weekend, we crossed a grim milestone, having 3 million people dead from this virus so far. Now, is saying it's so special? We did the right thing in trying to shore up our borders and keep the virus out. But the same way people are able to smuggle in trucks and drugs and guns, etc., into a country, no matter how tight the borders are, this virus that you can't see, it's going to get in at some point in time. And it could be today, it could be tomorrow, but it's going to happen. Now, another reason why you need to take it is that the vaccine is safe. Now, there are some persons who were concerned about how fast these vaccines appear to have been developed, but you need to understand what's involved in developing a vaccine. First of all, vaccines take a long time to be developed because of a number of hurdles. Number one, there's usually not a lot of funding towards these vaccines because the companies themselves don't necessarily make a lot of money, since these vaccines, for them to be effective, they have to be cheap or even free so that persons can take them. So there's not a lot of incentive for persons to invest in these, and so they usually have to seek funding to start these clinical trials. They usually have a hard time finding persons to enter into these trials because these are persons who are volunteering to take something that they don't even know if it will affect their health. And so we usually have a hard time finding that. And you also usually have to find persons with the disease to test to see how well this vaccine is working. Now, as it relates to the COVID-19 vaccines, governments of first world countries put up billions of dollars upfront so that the scientists can focus on developing these vaccines. So they didn't have that hurdle to cross. Two, there were no shortage of persons who were willing to participate in these trials because people were dying around the world. And so there were persons who were anxious to take anything that might offer some help. And so they had an excess amount of persons to enter these trials. And lastly, there was no problem in finding infected communities, so we can see how the vaccine will work once it was delivered to those communities. And so the COVID-19 vaccines that are available, these are the first vaccines that had so many thousands of persons involved in the clinical trials. Now, it's also important for you to know, too, that these vaccines, they don't change your DNA, they don't make you sterile, they don't give you the COVID-19 disease. We know that they're safe and that they're effective. And the side effects, there are hardly any side effects apart from, fever, muscle aches, etc., which last about 24 to 48 hours. And all of us who receive vaccines, all of you who have a child who had a vaccine before, for 24 to 48 hours after, the child might have a little illness, but they recover. Now, I know that there are a number of persons who were scared about the talk about clots associated with the vaccines, but it's important for you to put things into perspective. Now, around the world so far, more than 268 million persons have received the vaccine. In Europe, out of 34 million persons who received the vaccine, there was a report of 169 of them developing some sort of clots. Okay? Now, all of the reputable agencies have said, though, that there is no direct link between the vaccine and the clot. But even if we were to say that those 169 cases were definitely associated with the vaccine, that would be an incidence of 1 in 1.53 million persons. In other words, if you gave 1.53 million, one person might develop a clot. But when we look at the incidence of clots in the general public, because a lot of persons probably not aware that formation of clots and pulmonary embolisms, these are things that doctors have been fighting for a long time because it's a common cause of death. And so, as it relates to COVID-19 first, the risk of you developing clots from COVID-19 is 2 in 1,000. And so you are better taking a vaccine where even if the clot was associated with the vaccine, it is a risk of 1 in 1.5 million as compared to if you got the disease, which is 2 in 1,000. Now, the development of clots in the general population is usually 1 in 1,000 persons annually. Persons who take the oral contraceptive pill, the risk of developing a clot there is 1 in 1,000. People who fly, and I'm sure there are a significant number of persons here who fly, the risk of you developing a clot after a long flight is between 20 to 100 persons per 1,000 persons who fly develop clots. If you are hospitalized and you have to have prolonged bed rest, the risk of you developing a clot is 2 to 10 out of 1,000. When you get pregnant, the risk of developing a clot is 1 to 2 out of 1,000 persons. And as it relates to people who die from clots each year, it's about 100,000 to 300,000 persons who die from clot-related disease outside of the virus and each year. And that is more than the amount of persons who die from AIDS, breast cancer, motor vehicle accidents. And what happens sometimes is people erroneously associate any signs or symptoms they may have after they got the vaccine with the vaccine. And I tell people all the time, we drink water all the time. And so anyone who has had a headache, who has had a heart attack, who has developed appendicitis, who has died, they would have drank water about a day or so before they die. It doesn't mean that it was the water who killed them, that killed them. And so the same thing with the vaccine, we have to make sure that we don't erroneously associate any signs and symptoms that we may have with the vaccine. There are some persons who say that they have allergies, and because of that they think that they can't take the vaccine, and so they might tell me, oh, I'm allergic to a penicillin or fish, etc. But allergies are not cross-reactive like that. And so even if you have allergies, you can still take the vaccine. The only persons who cannot take the vaccine are persons who are allergic to anything that is contained within the vaccine. And most of the constituents, they are hypoallergenic. There's only one substance there that's called polysorbate 80 that a very, 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 very small percentage of persons might have an allergic reaction to it. And it's only persons who have hyperallergic conditions may not be able to take that. So the vast amount of persons here should be able to take it. Now, when you take the vaccine, you are not only protecting yourself, but you're protecting the vulnerable. So it's a noble thing you're doing it. You're not just doing it for yourself, because it's not everyone who can take the vaccine. For example, we said that the persons who are eligible to take the vaccine are persons who are over the age of 18. We also said that persons over the age of 80, although they can take the vaccine, we need to investigate them, make sure that they don't have any serious underlying conditions, because sometimes somebody who is 88, just getting a little fever from the common cold can push them over the edge. And so that is why we say if you're over the age of 80, you need to be checked out by your doctor first. But the 70% of persons who are over the age of 18 and between the age of 80, you have a moral responsibility also to protect those who cannot take it. And that's where herd immunity comes in. Because again, if you look at this church, if 80% of us in here has the vaccine and somebody came in and sat next to 5 or 6 persons who are vaccinated, they will not be able to spread the vaccine to the 1 or 2 persons in the church here who are not covered. And so if you have children, or if you get close to children, if you have grandchildren, if you have a mother, if you have a father, if you are part of a community, you have a responsibility to take the vaccine so that you can protect those persons who cannot protect themselves. Now, we kept saying that we need to vaccinate about 70 to 90% of the population to develop herd immunity so that we can move back to some sense of normalcy. And there are some persons who say, oh, I'm going to wait, or I'm going to put myself in the 30% who are not going to get it. You can't put yourself in the 30%, because if you're 35, you can't put yourself in the 0 to 18 category. Leave that for the little children who cannot be vaccinated. Leave that for the elderly who are old and frail and sick and who are dependent upon you to take the vaccine to protect them from this deadly virus. One of the reasons to why we can't wait, because the longer we wait, this virus is pretty smart. It is always trying to see how it can hitch a ride from one person to the other, and it keeps changing, and that is how variants develop. And if we don't do what is necessary now to eliminate the virus, variants will develop that can be more transmissible or can be even more deadly, and we would have to get other vaccines to help to fight this. And so we know that we have effective vaccines now, and so we need to take them. Another reason why you should take the vaccine, because it helps to protect your health system. In that when this pandemic was declared last year, the government had to take up over $17 million and inject it into the health system so that we can fight coronavirus. We can't continue doing that and ignore diabetes, hypertension, and all these other diseases that are killing persons. We saw in the USA and Europe how the health system became overloaded because of these COVID-19 patients, such that they had to cancel routine operations and routine treatment, etc. Even routine vaccination of kids had to be put on the side burner. And so once we can contain this virus and this disease, we can get our health system back looking after the chronic non-communicable diseases that also kill persons. Another reason why you should take the vaccine, because it makes you financially strong. If you get COVID-19, yes, some persons may die, about 2%, but there are a lot of persons who are developing now what's called long-haul COVID, where after they recover, they continue to have chronic headaches, forgetfulness, muscle aches, etc. And this is a new disease, and we don't know what's going to happen to these persons even 2, 3, 4 years from now. But by you getting the vaccine and protecting yourself, you can continue to work and support your family and be the major breadwinner if you are. Another reason, and this is a very important reason, is that when you take the vaccine, you not only are protecting yourself and the vulnerable here, but you're protecting future generations. And let's look at it this way. If 30, 40 years ago, people were to do what some of us are doing now, saying, no, I'm not going to take the vaccine, we would not have been able to eliminate polio and smallpox and measles and mumps. And so we would have been having to be dealing with those things now. The reason why we're not dealing with those diseases now, because persons before us did the responsible thing and simply rolled up their sleeve and took the vaccine, not just to protect themselves, but to protect future generations. If you take the vaccine today, what you're basically saying is, I am going to be a part of the team that's going to eradicate COVID-19 from this world, so the persons who are going to be born next year and the year after won't have to be dealing with this. And so you are protecting future generations by taking this. Another reason why you should take the vaccine is that it helps to prevent fake news. And there's a lot of fake news that is spreading. While I was sitting there in church, I got a message from the CMO saying that somebody is circulating something saying that the Prime Minister Timothy Harris is saying that he is stopping the vaccination in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, fake news spreads much faster than the truth. And when more of us come forward and do the right thing and take the vaccine, we are telling people that we believe in science, we don't believe in fake news, and we are showing persons that we are doing what's responsible. And I keep saying, the message doesn't have to come from Father Cassius or from me. Every one of you here has a platform. And I like to tell the story because I had a couple of persons in the village that I've been speaking to about taking the vaccine for a long time. And they kept refusing. Then one day they called me and said, Doc, we went and take the vaccine, you know. I said, oh, I finally got it to you. They said, no, we saw the mansion bull take the vaccine, and we say, if the mansion bull can take the vaccine, we're going to take the vaccine too. So the mansion bull was their leader, you understand? And so the point I'm making is, it doesn't have to come from anyone in the health field. There is somebody who's looking at you right now, and they are saying, if you take the vaccine today, I will take the vaccine today or tomorrow. Because unless we get vaccinated, we're not going to get back to normal. And so we have to understand that human beings, we are social human beings. We love to hug, we love to kiss, we love to gather in groups, and we cannot continue like this. There are persons who are suffering emotionally. I remember last year, they were saying the greatest gift you could give to your mother on Mother's Day was to stay away from your mother or your grandmother. We can't continue like that. We can't continue hiding our beautiful faces with these masks, etc. And so the only how we're going to get back to normal is if persons do the right thing and take the vaccine. And so I thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer.
I want to say thanks to Dr. He was certainly putting in some pace to getting the information for us. Thank you very much. And so any questions, any concerns anyone might have, we'll allow you to ask a question or two, or three if we need to. But the whole idea is we want you to be comfortable, want you to be informed, so that, you know, if you so choose, you are comfortable with the step that you are taking. No questions?
That's a good sign, actually.
Okay, okay.
So the nurses are in the back.
Okay, so we don't have any questions. Okay,
There's
we
somebody,
have...
Father Cassius.
What is the time period for the second dose after having the first dose? Is it 2 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks?
Okay. Now, different vaccinations have different dosing schedule. With the AstraZeneca vaccine, it has been found that the efficacy of the vaccine increases from 76 to 82.4% the longer the interval between the doses. And the recommended interval is between 8 to 12 weeks. Here in St. Kitts, we have chosen 10 weeks. And so after you got your first dose, you should get it 10 weeks later. It doesn't mean that if you miss the date 10 weeks later, you shouldn't take it. It means that you actually have another 14 days during which you can take it. That's why we've chosen 10 weeks as opposed to 12.
Okay, very nice. Good. Any other questions or concerns or comments? Okay. All right, over here. Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Wilkinson, and I must say thank you so much for a very thorough and very sound presentation as to the reasons why we should be vaccinated. Now, on the same point, I am a very forgetful person, and so my 10-week, then into the 12-week, and I forget to go and get vaccinated for my second dose. Would that hamper the effectiveness of the vaccine if I take it after that particular 12-week period? And would I then have to like redose, like start over, like get a first dose again and then go back for my second dose?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that question. And one of the things we emphasize in this fight is personal responsibility. And this is the first time in history that the singular action of one person has far-reaching consequences for everyone else. Okay? And so one needs to do the responsible thing, yes, by rolling up and taking the vaccination. But when you take your first shot, the nurses keep a record, and so persons might be calling you to remind you of your second dose. But persons also need to do the responsible thing and write it down and make sure that they show up for that second dose. You understand? Because if the clinical trial said that it should not be given outside of 12 weeks, it means that outside of 12 weeks you might have to start over again. Okay? And so you have 14 days to do this. And you know, I tell persons, if I were to promise each of you $2,000 and told you come back for the extra, which is an extra 5,000 in 10 weeks, you will be calling me by week 6, 7, 8 for the $2,000. You understand? And so this is something that is better than money that's going to save your life. So make sure that you write it down.
You want it? Okay.
Up here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilkinson, and thank you for your presentation, which was crystal clear. But I have a question that I've heard issued many times before, and that is, should we incentivize getting the vaccination? So in other words, should we be offering something in our business places or government offering something to get the vaccine? Let me hear what you have to say.
Well, the reason why I'm smiling, because we have been doing this in a staged approach, and we have been following the science. And studies have shown that with a new vaccine, for example, 1/3 of the persons would come forward voluntarily and based on scientific information and take the vaccine. And we saw that happen here, where in the early days people were lining up and getting the vaccine. The other 2/3 are usually more difficult, and those 2/3 consist of persons, number one, who are considered under-vaccinated, and these are people who don't necessarily have anything against the vaccine, but it has not been made convenient for them. And so, for example, there are some persons here in the church today who have nothing against the vaccine, but because we've made it convenient, they're going to go and take it. There's some persons who, because of their job, it was not convenient, but when we show up at their jobs, they take the vaccine. For example, we vaccinated 37 persons from RAMS on Thursday, and we are compiling another list for other persons. And so by making it convenient. And then we have those who are hesitant. Those are persons who don't necessarily have the correct information, or they have false information. And we try to see how we can dispel that and get them to take the vaccine. And so there would have been some persons here listening to me who I would have cleared up some things for them, and they would have gone forward and take the vaccine. Now, once we've gotten through all of that, there are going to be some persons who are left who might be just totally against the vaccine. And you would have to determine how you will get these persons to be vaccinated, whether or not you will mandate it, whether or not you will give them incentives, etc. And so it's a staged approach, and you'll be hearing more from us on that.
Sorry, you want to follow up? Here you go. Sorry.
You do not need to be given $100 to have a vaccine that is going to save your life.
And, okay, so she's, Dr. Ferdinand is making a very good point, where she's saying that one doesn't need to get an incentive to take the vaccine because the incentive is saving your life. But I was expressing my personal view then, because if you were to ask me what is my personal view, I would say, you don't need to get an incentive. The incentive is in saving your life. But when you're working for an institution, you have to express the broad views of everyone. And so I gave you the stepwise approach from the broad view of the institutions that I work for. But if I were in charge, I would say no money. You will pay it less.
Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Wilkinson. I just have a quick question. If the option is available for someone to get the first shot of maybe the Oxford vaccine, and then the second shot for maybe the Pfizer, is that recommended? What are the risks of doing that?
Yes, okay, so there has been the talk of mixing and matching. And unless it's a dire situation, one doesn't need to mix and match. Okay, and so in the early days, one was saying that you get whatever you can. For example, with the AstraZeneca vaccine, we know that from the first shot, you have a 76% protection. And we could have made a decision to just use it on every single person and worry about the second dose. Okay? But we have secured the second dose for those persons who came and took their first dose, because as the vaccines are developed, more and more will come onto the market. And so I don't believe that we're at a stage now where we'd have to mix and match. But if it came to that, the scientists will inform us accordingly.
Anybody else?
Somebody else?
Oh, one more.
Thank you very much for that wonderful explanation. My question is, if we were to really reach herd community, would we still have to do the usual non-communicable that we have been doing? That includes hand sanitizing, 6 feet, and still wearing the mask? I don't think people worry too much about the hand sanitization and the 6 feet, but I think the mask is very, very, people want to get off that. So just want to hear about that.
Okay, and that's a very good question. Now, one of the things that we've said is no one is safe until everyone is safe. And yes, we are trying to reach herd immunity for the country, but I always say it takes small steps to walk a mile. And so while we're looking at reaching herd immunity for the country, persons need to look at the little herds that they're in. And so the Anglican Church can become a herd where persons are protected. Your family can become a herd where persons can become protected. Just last weekend, I was at a party, a little family get-together my sister-in-law was having for her birthday. And somebody made a comment, every single person in that house was vaccinated, and so that herd was protected. And that is how we will get to herd immunity. Now, one of the reasons why the World Health Organization got involved to make sure that every single country on the face of this earth received the vaccine is that the United States can't vaccinate themselves out of the problem because of how small the world is and people are traveling. And so the point I'm trying to make is this. We need to get to herd immunity here so that we can start relaxing some of the protocols and procedures. And so if, for example, in your family gathering, if you're in your small group, everybody is vaccinated, you can decrease the social distancing, you can take off your mask and move freely with them. But as a country, these things are going to have to continue, some of them, for a while until the world itself is protected, because there's always a risk of the virus coming in. Yes, you may see reduction in the quarantine period, but the wearing the mask, the hand sanitizing, that might continue for some time, and it might even become the norm. I remember when I was traveling back here last year, February, from England, there's an Asian woman who came on the plane with a mask, and everybody was looking at her in scorn. And I was surprised, within 2 weeks, the entire world was wearing a mask. You understand? So this might become the new norm. It will take a while before it goes away.
All right. Anybody else? Now, think of this. This is a one-time thing. We're not going to do this every Sunday. So I know we would like to get ourselves together, but it's best if we use the opportunity we have now, rather than sometime down the road we complain saying that we didn't know. So any other final questions or comments? Anyone? No? Okay. Now I think I should say there is a team of nurses just in the Belfry area as you're going out to the left. And, well, maybe I should let Dr. Wilkinson explain about the team of nurses there.
Well, Nurse Irish, who is leading the team, she's there, and you can simply go and there's a form that you can fill out, put your name, etc. down, and the nurses will speak to you individually as you come in. They will administer you the vaccine once you decide to do the right thing and roll up your sleeve and take it. They will give you the date when you need to come back to have the second shot. They will ask you to hang around for a little while to observe, to make sure that you don't have any issues. I can tell you though, since we've been rolling out this vaccine with the 11,000 persons who've received it, everyone has been able to walk away quite fine. And so in the early days, we were more vigilant with that, but we're pretty certain that you'll be fine once you got the shot. Yes. Oh, now the vials, they come in batches of 10, and so we can't open a vial for one person or two persons, and so that is why I said the nurses will take your name and write it down, and once they have the required number, they will institute the vaccine here. If, for example, they only had 2 persons, which I doubt, who decided that they wanted to have the vaccine, they will give you a date to come to the clinic to have it done, okay, because we cannot waste this precious resource.
Good. And just to say thanks, we have nurses Irish, Collins, Warner, and Henry. So we want to say thank you to them as well for coming along with Dr. Wilkinson and for making themselves available. So I take it no other questions for Dr. Wilkinson? No? So let me therefore say then on our behalf, all of our behalf, Dr. Wilkinson, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
To come and share with us. And we want to see you celebrating a birthday, so we trust that your special day, is it today? Tuesday, okay. Well, you have a